of the poem brought together into a single cohesive piece. It moves from a desperate plea for home to the heavy, final realization of a self-inflicted exile. The sentence, and so she stated for the 50th time that day alone her desire and will to just go home. Her pleas and cries, they went unheard by the God she once adored, for she was already down below. Her death to her remained unknown. The line to God had long since ceased. What she did not know, she could not see. The realization came not with a roar, but a cold, quiet settling behind the door. The home she had sought with a desperate cry was the life she'd forgotten, the one left to die. The heat wasn't fire, nor sulfur, nor flame, but the silence of God when she called out his name. A loop of the 50th time, day by day, where the walls never move and the light stays at gray. Acceptance was not a reprieve or a light, but a thickening oil in the middle of night. To know what it is, to name it at last, does nothing to silence the ghosts of the past. The sentence is written in the hollow of bones. To wander a desert of silence and stones. To feel the cold ache of a love left behind, a mirror of hearts she had once unaligned. She sees now the faces, the home she forsook, the chapters she closed in a half-written book. The children, the silence, the why, in their eyes, now live in her throat as her own muffled cries. No fire is needed where memory stays, to burn through the fog of her infinite days. She knows where she is, and she knows what she's done. The ending has started. The sentence has won. This is a powerful, visceral piece of writing. The way it ends with the sentence being the very emotions she caused others creates a very heavy, circular sense of justice. Would you like me to help you format this into a specific layout, or perhaps explore a different perspective, like a response from the God she once adored? Given the tone of your poem, where the line to God has ceased and the silence is part of the punishment, a response from that divine figure wouldn't likely be a booming voice or a simple pardon. It would likely be a reflection of the distance she created, a mirror to her own choices. If that God spoke, it might sound like a quiet, tragic confirmation of the boundaries she set for herself. The silent response, I heard every word of the 50 and 1. Before the first stars, before there was sun. I was the home that you shouted for, still. But I cannot enter a locked shut will. You speak of a sentence, of already down, of a ghost in a city, a soul in a town. But the bars of the cage and the weight of the chain are forged in the furnace of your own self-disdain. You say that I'm silent, you say that I've gone, while I stand in the shadow you cast on the lawn. I gave you the children, the breath and the light, but you traded the morning for infinite night. The hell that you live in, the ache and the cold, is only the story that you have retold. You abandoned the mercy I kept on the shelf, to become the judge and the jailer yourself. I do not ignore you, I simply agree. If this is the world that you've chosen to see, the door isn't bolted, the lock has no key, but you cannot come home until you find me. Analysis of this perspective, the locked shut will. This God isn't sending her to hell, he is respecting the hell she built for herself out of guilt. It suggests that her inability to forgive herself is the actual wall between them. The agreement. There's a heavy philosophical idea here that God simply agrees with our own self-assessment. If she believes she is a monster, or in hell, the divine presence retreats to allow her to experience the reality she's insisted upon. The final invitation. It offers a tiny, painful sliver of hope that home is still there, but it's blocked by her own choice to remain the judge and the jailer. How does this version of God fit with the world you built in your poem? Would you want him to be more unforgiving, or does this tragic, distant version feel right? Those are the million-dollar questions that have haunted poets, theologians, and anyone who has ever felt abandoned by the divine. In the context of the world you've built, there are a few ways to look at this, each one more tragic than the last. 1. How did she die? The nature of the exit. In a poem this heavy with guilt, the how usually mirrors the why. The slow fading, neglect. It might not have been a single violent moment. It could have been the death of 1,000 cuts, where she stopped caring for herself, stopped eating, or stopped engaging with the world until she simply evaporated. This would fit the theme of her self-inflicted isolation. The desperate choice, suicide. If it was suicide, it adds a layer of irony to her desire and will to go home. In this interpretation, she tried to force the door to heaven, only to find that the door she opened led to a mirror of her own internal darkness instead. The sleepwalk, accident. There's a version where she was so lost in her own grief and nihilism that she simply walked into the path of something she didn't see coming. Her mind was already gone, and her body finally just followed. 2. Why did God not step in? This is the hardest part to reconcile. If she was a beloved child, Why the silence? The free will paradox. Many spiritual perspectives suggest that God cannot interfere with the human's will. If she spent years building a wall of "I hate life and I want to go home," she effectively blocked the very help she was crying for. You can't be saved from a room you've locked from the inside. The silent teacher theory. Some believe that God speaks in a That is actually the most haunting part of the story, the erasure of the timeline. When you don't know the how or the when, the hell becomes truly timeless. It's not a destination you travel to, it's a state of being that just took over. The horror of the unknown, the seamless transition. If she doesn't know she's dead, it means the suffering she felt while alive was so similar to the suffering she feels now that she couldn't tell when one ended and the other began. The infinite loop. Without a date of death, there is no before and after. There is only the now, where she is repeating her plea for the 50th time. It suggests she might have been dead, spiritually, long before her heart actually stopped. The lost identity. To lose the memory of your own end is to lose the last piece of your story. She is a character who has lost her own plot, leaving only the raw emotions, the fear, the isolation, and the guilt. The God in the silence.